I'm just going to clear out the recording message. So hello, everyone. First of all, can you all hear me? Is my sound good?
Yes.
Awesome. So welcome to another session of Cook with Nicole. This has been going on for a while, and I'm very happy to be here for International Education Week. I'm Nicole Ianieri. I am the director of the ECU Language Academy, which is an intensive English program here at ECU. And my own background is Italian. My father was from the Abruzzo region of Italy, which is in central Italy, south central Italy. And tonight's dish is something that I ate a lot growing up, and I still enjoy to this day. It's very easy to prepare. It is economical. It's not very expensive, and it's adaptable. So that's really what all traditional cooking is about. Unfortunately, in the United States, many ingredients used in traditional Italian cooking are prohibitively expensive, but that certainly goes against the heart and spirit of Italian cooking. Some of you may be familiar with the term cucina povera, which means literally the poverty kitchen. That's because many of the ingredients that are used in Italian and Italian American dishes today originally were things that people had readily available because much of Italy at that time was agricultural. And in the South, much of it still is. So my family, they have day jobs, but they still have land and they still till the fields. Many of them cultivate olives, and we're getting up into that harvest season over there. So if you have any questions at all during this demonstration, you could either type them in the chat or you could ask. I will not be monitoring the chat, but one of my colleagues from the Office of Global Affairs will be. So they will check that and read it out loud, and I will answer your question best I can. If you are cooking along with me tonight, please go ahead and put a large pot of water, salted water, onto boil. I've already started my water. So I have a big pot of water. If you don't cook pasta often, I just want to encourage you to use abundant water when you do. Many people will try to cram a lot of pasta into a very small pot, and pasta really needs lots of water to cook properly. So you want to have a big enough pot. My parents actually used to have, and I need to get one myself, a huge stock pot with a colander insert. And that's what we would use when we would make pasta, because we would make a lot more than one pot. So we had a lot, and that was very convenient because instead of dumping all that boiling water and risking burning yourself, you could just lift out the colander insert. So if you have one, that's great too, but I'm not going to be using that. So go ahead and put your water on. So this dish, aglio, olio, literally means garlic and oil. And that's much of what it is. And that reminds me, I need my oil. Let me grab that really quick. I'm low on one brand. I actually like this brand. This is a Tunisian brand, and the oil is very good. This one, I'm not really a fan of Pompeian, but this is what they had, and I needed some oil, so I grabbed it. If at all possible, try to select oil from single origin. Sometimes if you read the back, you'll see made from olives from 3 or 4 different countries or more. I always try to know where my olive oil is coming from. That's not always possible, but if you can, that's great. That's one reason I like this Tunisian olive oil, because it comes from, to my knowledge, it comes from one farm. So, but back to the dish. So aglio olio literally means garlic and oil, and it's a staple across southern Italy. I'm not sure if they eat it in northern Italy. I'm sure it probably has migrated up there, but don't let the ingredients put you off of trying it. So yes, it has garlic, and yes, garlic can be pungent, but it cooks out. A lot of it cooks out, and don't be put off by the oil as well. I've done this demo before, and some of the participants from that demo remarked later, they said they were really surprised by how the final dish was really not oily. And that's because the oil is used to dress the pasta, but your pasta isn't swimming in oil. But you'll see for yourself in just a short time. So we're going to begin. This is a customizable dish, okay? So if you're looking for exact measurements, or you're a person who needs exact measurements, you're probably going to struggle a little bit with this dish, and that's okay. Let go of the need to be precise with this dish. It really depends on your taste. So this is how much garlic I'm using. So I have quite a bit there. That's for 1 pound of pasta, but I like it with that much garlic. Otherwise, the sauce will be quite bland. So even if you don't like garlic quite as much as I do, I strongly suggest that you use more than 1 or 2 cloves, because it's just not going to be enough. And then the other ingredient that we're going to be preparing, and let me see, I'm going to move it so you can see the cutting board better. But the other ingredient that we're going to be preparing is this flat leaf parsley. So I get the question, well, what if I can't find flat leaf parsley, otherwise known as Italian parsley? It won't taste terrible, but it is slightly different. Flat leaf parsley has a slightly different flavor profile than curly. But if you're stuck and you really want to do this dish and curly is all you have, that's okay. When it comes to dried ingredients, because I know sometimes, things aren't available and people have to do what they have to do. Dried parsley might be acceptable, it might work, but I do not recommend using dried garlic powder at all. It will not work. So if you're tempted to prepare this and you don't have everything, you really do need fresh garlic. Dried parsley, you could do it. I don't endorse it, but it wouldn't be terrible. But you really want fresh parsley if you can find it. And if you can't find fresh flat leaf, then go with the fresh curly over the dry. Okay, any questions so far?
I do, Nicole. It's Bill. So
Yes.
how much salt do you put in the water when you, I know there's no precise measure. My wife always says I put too much salt in it because the pasta tastes too salty.
Well, that's a great question. So salted water, I've read this from various chefs, and I actually believe that there's merit to this. The statement is that the water should taste like seawater, because the salt, pasta's bland, as we know. So the salt in the cooking water seasons the final dish. So, and much of it will drain, it will go down the drain. So generally speaking, unless you're highly sensitive to salt, you're probably okay with using a lot of salt in the water because it's going to drain out anyway. But I always put it in before I start boiling the water, before I put it on the heat. So I don't know, perhaps if you've been preparing it and putting the salt in at the end, and that's an argument that no Italian chef has been able to settle. Do we put it in first before it boils, or do we put it in after boiling? Personally, I put it in at the beginning. So maybe you could try that and see if it helps the salinity of the water there.
Okay, next question with the garlic. I would always use fresh garlic like you do, but have you ever used, because I see sometimes, and I have family members and we have this talk and argument all the time, they bought that pre-chopped that's in oil that you can get.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Too.
I have strong opinions about that, but any port in a storm, if that's what you have, then you make it work. But I don't like that. It has an aftertaste to me. I tried it many years ago. Real quick, I'm happy to continue other questions. I'm going to start chopping up this garlic. So if you're cooking along with me, I'm just going to flatten it slightly with my knife. Don't be afraid to kind of, push it down. You could use a food processor, but that's no fun. I prefer to chop it by hand. And I'm just going to start chopping into very, very fine, small dice, a very fine minced garlic. Yes. So yes, I am not a fan of, and I'm sorry y'all can't see me, but I'd like the focus to be on the food. Let me bring it. Go. Can y'all see that? Can you see the cutting board?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't like the jarred garlic. I never have. And with garlic, this is another thing that a lot of people have opinions about, but garlic can cause botulism. So some people who preserve it in olive oil, because if you had it and you just put it in olive oil, I think it could work, but you have to be really, really careful about botulism because that can happen. Any preserved food has the risk of botulism, and you certainly don't want to become sick from the garlic unless you're prepping. Like, I know some people who grow their own garlic and they prep like pounds and pounds of garlic at a time. And I would certainly hope they use their food processor in that case. But they actually will put it under oil, and sometimes they'll freeze it too. So the freezer is safe, but you have to be careful when jarring your own garlic and preserving it in oil. So you might think, oh, well, that garlic looks finely chopped. Well, we're not done yet. I really mince it very finely because I don't want chunks of garlic in the dish. You just want little small bits of minced garlic clinging delicately to the pasta strands. Yeah, right. This is not a delicate dish. I was just joking. but you don't want huge chunks of garlic unless that's your thing. If you love chunks of garlic, then by all means, do what works for you. And I'm chopping the garlic first because I'm going to use the same cutting board. There's no need to use two separate cutting boards, and it's just a lot easier to chop the garlic before you chop the parsley because then everything's going to get green with the parsley. Any questions? Is anyone cooking along with us? Is it just me?
I think it's just you.
Come on,
That's
guys.
okay.
You're no fun. No one wanted to cook along with me. That's okay.
I wanted to, but I didn't have time to go shopping. Sorry.
I totally understand. Well, the good thing is I believe this is being recorded, so you can play back and cook along with me whenever you have a chance to get your ingredients.
While you're chopping that, though, I do have a question on the pasta. Do you use with regular spaghetti angel hair? Any
So I love making
the bronze cut? Does it matter?
I like angel hair pasta or capellini. My favorite pasta brand is De Cecco, and I can't always find that here. If you're in the Northeast, you might have better luck, but here, I think Harris Teeter has it. But Barilla isn't too bad, so Barilla is my second choice. The reason I love De Cecco pasta, can anyone guess? Anyone want to guess why?
I thought your family used that.
Well, but even a more, it's related to family, but a more compelling reason. So, does anyone know where De Cecco pasta is made?
Philadelphia?
No. So, my family lives in Philadelphia.
I know, that's why I gave it
Where
just a
were
shot.
they? Where were they before?
Italy.
Yes. So De Cecco pasta is made in Fara San Martino, Italy, which is in Abruzzo. And it is made with water from the pristine mountain sources there. And I've been to the water source there when I've visited my father's town several times. My father's from a small town called Casoli. And Fara San Martino is very close. And that's where De Cecco pasta is made. So if you want some Abruzzese pasta, please give De Cecco a try. So if you don't have angel hair or capellini, you can use regular spaghetti. But I honestly have never tried this with any other type of pasta, and I honestly don't know how that would work because you definitely want a pasta with strands. I suppose linguine could work, but I don't know. My family's preference has always been for the thinner cuts. All right, I'm just about done with this garlic here. It's nice and minced very finely, and it smells delicious. So I love the smell of garlic. Growing up, my parents both, we all loved garlic. So from a very young age, I was eating dishes with a very healthy dose of garlic. And, you know, we always had to be careful after dinner going out that we didn't offend anyone, you know. But garlic is very good for your health. It has antibacterial properties, and it's really, really healthy and good for you. And really, when you cook it properly, It's not going to be too pungent. It's not going to, give you vampire breath. I mean, yes, there will be an odor, but find yourself like-minded individuals, right? People who appreciate the finer qualities of garlic, not final qualities of garlic. All right. So there's my garlic mince. So it's nice and minced very finely. And now I'm gonna make sure I get every little last bit. I'm gonna rinse my hands quickly, and I'm going to start on the parsley. So my water is at a boil. So I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit because I'm not quite ready for it yet. You don't want to turn it down all the way because it'll take time to come up to boil again. But once it starts boiling, you can put it down on simmer and then just bring it back up to a boil when you're ready. All right, I have quite a bit of parsley here. So I'm gonna divide it into 2 segments just to make it easier. So again, whoops. So again, you could use a food processor for this. You absolutely could. But honestly, my personal opinion is that it's getting the food processor dirty and it's a pain to clean. I use my food processor for baking actually, and that's pretty much the only thing I use it for unless I have a large quantity of herbs to mince. But for a dish like this, just chopping the parsley by yourself, unless of course, you may have a condition that makes it very painful to chop, and in which case do whatever makes it easy for you. But if you're able to, I strongly suggest chopping the parsley because you can really control the mince and it won't get macerated. The problem with food processors, because they're so powerful, which is great for some things, is that it almost bruises the herbs when you chop them. So you want to try to avoid that unless you're just pulverizing them. So I'm just going to chop here, and you're going to see, much like the garlic, I'm going to I like to kind of push it up on itself, and that makes it a little easier to cut. And then that just kind of gets it started, and then we're going to do the mince. And yes, I realize my knife skills are probably not the safest. I get my fingers really close to the blade, but what can I do? That's how I learned to cut. So I love this knife. It probably is overdue though for a sharpening because I love it so much. I've tried so many things to sharpen knives. I even purchased an at-home knife sharpener, and honestly, it didn't do a darn thing. Many years ago, I don't know if they still have them in some towns, they would have professional knife sharpeners who would come around. I mean, this is before my time. But I always thought that was such a nice idea that you would have people coming around sharpening your knives, because a sharp knife, those of you who cook regularly know, a sharp knife is actually safer than a dull knife, because with a dull knife, you'll kind of be stabbing at it and trying to slice something, and then when it slices, it'll probably cause you to cut your hand because you're holding something the wrong way. But a sharp knife will just go through anything.
So I wanted to mention that there's a man at the farmer's market here, Pitt County Farmer's Market, who will sharpen your knife.
Really? That is wonderful to know. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm heartened to know that there are still knife sharpeners around, because I need to bring several, I think.
When I lived in Manhattan, there was a truck that would come around about once a month or so in the neighborhoods that would sharpen your knives.
Oh, well then that's really cool. So it's not gone after all. That's great.
No, they
That
had
was
the
in
same.
80s.
Yeah. No, they did the same thing in Brooklyn. A guy
Well,
would,
clearly, I have to move to Manhattan or Brooklyn to enjoy the knife sharpener skills.
yeah, the truck would pull up in the corner.
Yeah. Although I haven't lived there in a couple of decades, so I don't know if it's still true.
Yeah, they're still doing it in the 1990s.
Mhm.
I wonder if that was driven by the fact that there are so many kind of old time cooks, at least there were, and I think there still are in that area. And, people who cook regularly demand sharp knives. I mean, that's a must. So probably the need made it something profitable for people. But nowadays, I think a lot of people are just too busy to cook. Life is stressful.
Yeah, they probably don't have the knife sharpeners anymore.
So this is pretty much, this is good enough for me. So it's very finely chopped there. You can see that, but that's just half of it. So we're gonna finish the other pile. I'm gonna transfer this over here. And of course, I've washed this all beforehand, dried it, and I have torn off most of the stem. This is not a dish where you really want to chop the stems. If you were making a soup or something where it was going to be pureed, you absolutely could, but stems can be tough, and unless you want to waste all your time chopping them down, I don't use the stems. In fact, when I get home and I rinse my herbs, especially parsley, which is hardier than cilantro. Cilantro is really finicky, you know, it goes bad really fast. So if you get it, you probably don't want to wash it until you're ready to use it. And then you want to pick out any, this is true for parsley as well, but especially for cilantro, you want to pick out any bad bits, anything that has gone off and is turning color and slimy, because it will spread very fast and it'll ruin your whole bunch of cilantro. And then you want to keep it between lightly moistened sheets, paper towels, in a compartment in your fridge. You could put it in a glass of water. In fact, my relatives from Italy, I remember once when they were staying with us, I had never seen parsley stored that way. And it makes sense if you're cooking something, you know, the next day. They treated it like a bouquet of flowers. They put it in a water glass and kept it in the fridge that way. And it actually does keep things fresh, but you can't keep it like that forever. And you also have to be cognizant that there may be people in your household who knock over the glass of water and cause a mess in your fridge. This parsley smells so good. That's one thing with flat leaf parsley. It really does have it has a different flavor profile. It's slightly more aromatic, I would say. Flat leaf parsley never really gets the same olfactory reaction. I think that's the right word.
Nicole, could you use other herbs? So let's say, because we have fresh herbs outside, just with oh gosh, like oregano and then plenty of basil and things like that. Could that be used, or that kind of just changes the whole dish around then?
I have never heard of people using basil with this dish, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible. The thing with basil is that it really, unless you're making it in a sauce, like, you know, a pesto or something, I don't think it would stand up well to being fried in the oil. So that's one thing. I think that might really change the way it tastes. Also, basil can be sweet. So if you use the quantity of basil that I'm using here, because, you know, if you make a pesto, for example, it's cut with sharp, salty cheese and pine nuts. So that, I think, mellows it out. But in this dish, because it has so few ingredients, I think the basil might throw it off. Now, oregano or thyme, I think that would be an interesting combination. I think it could work very well. It would change the taste considerably, but you might want to try by incorporating small amounts of that, you know, blending maybe the parsley and seeing if you like it. And if you like it, go for it.
Sure.
Yeah, fresh herbs are wonderful.
Well, you want the garlic to come out, so that's
Yeah.
that's what you're looking for.
Yes, that's it too. Like you don't want the garlic to be overshadowed by a strong herb. So the parsley is a really nice vehicle for that, because it's, you know, it has a nice flavor, but it's not a really strong flavor.
Absolutely.
All right, we are good with our parsley. See how everything's green on the cutting board? So if we had chopped our garlic at this point, it would have been green garlic.
So is that about a cup of parsley?
No, I would say, and this was, by the way, 2 bunches after I cleaned them and got rid of all the yucky bits. So it really depends on your bunch, because you might get a bunch of parsley that's really, you know, abundant and it's all very fresh and good. Mine was kind of so-so. But this I would say is about half a cup packed. But you know, it's up to you. You could use more parsley, you could use a little less, but you definitely want to use, I mean, if you decided you don't love parsley, I mean, you want enough that it's in the dish because that is literally the sauce. It's parsley and garlic. I'm gonna go rinse my hands and I'm gonna use this later. I'll be right back. Okay, so before I take you on a little journey over to the stove here, I just wanted to show you the other ingredient apart from salt. This is crushed red pepper. In Italy, there's something called peperoncino, and peperoncino literally is like a small red pepper, but it's a tiny, tiny red pepper that is very, very spicy, and it is loved in the South. My grandfather used to get some, and in fact, when he was in Italy, he went with us one year and he brought back a pepper and he forgot about it. And that pepper was actually in his pants pocket for like 5 years. He had like forgotten about it. And by the time he remembered it, it was actually all dried and perfect to use. So it worked out for him. Now, the amount of pepper is really up to you and your family. Again, it's not going to be super spicy unless you use a lot. I'm making this to consume with my family later, and my kids, well, one of them likes spicy, the other doesn't. So this amount is going to mean that the spice is felt, but it's not brutal because you're going to have the garlic, you're going to have the olive oil, you're going to have the parsley. If you don't like things a little spicy, then definitely be cognizant of the amount and be cognizant of the strength of the pepper. This pepper is really, really strong. So I know what's going to work and what I like, but you need to know what works for you. Certainly, if you have a pepper allergy, you do not want to try this at home. But the pepper is really needed. I am going to move you all over here and hope that my battery doesn't die. If it does, I'll just have it. Hello. And is that a good visual for everyone? Can you see the pan?
That's better right there. That looks good.
Is the light okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
the light's really good right here.
Okay, awesome. So here's my pot of water, which is boiling, even though I have it on simmer. I'm not going to make the pasta until I've finished here, okay? Because it comes together so fast and you don't want your pasta sitting there like getting soggy and overcooked while you're waiting to put it in here. Oh, and that reminds me, I want to get a bowl to toss everything in. If your pan's big enough, you can toss everything in the pan, and I think I'm going to be okay. But just in case, I'm going to get out a bowl, and I'm going to get out my tongs. Tongs are really great for pasta. You know, depending on your family background and how you grew up eating pasta, you may have been exposed to pasta that is just kind of dumped with a whole bunch of sauce on it. So that is not the Italian way. That doesn't mean it's not good. So, you know, if your family did it and you loved it, I am not criticizing that, but I'm just making the point that in Italy, sauce is not something you drown the pasta in. It is really a condiment for good pasta. And I'll get back to that in just a minute. I just want to start heating my oil. So anytime you heat oil, right, you have to be very attentive to the stove because we all know what happens when oil gets too hot. Is anyone, well, no one's cooking along, so this won't matter, I suppose. But if you're using shrimp, I am not tonight, but there was an option to use shrimp, I believe. I can't remember if I put that in the recipe notes. You can make this dish with shrimp. And if you do, you want to add the shrimp before, well, I'm trying to think here. Yes, you want to add the shrimp right after you put the garlic in and kind of cook it together because you don't want the garlic or the shrimp to become super, you know, brown. The garlic should not be browned in this, and the shrimp should not be overcooked. All right, of course, the new olive oil is giving me a hard time. So I've covered the bottom of the pan, but I need a little bit more. Come on, olive oil. They make these new lids that are horrible. I hate the plastic lids. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna put some more in. I think that's good enough. So I would say I've used probably about a cup of oil in here. Some of you may be gasping in horror.
I was gonna say, that looks like a lot of oil.
It is, but your dish is not going to be oily. It's going to really work well. I mean, you'll have some oil at the bottom, and that's really delicious for sopping up bread. But it's not, you're going to be surprised at how the final dish isn't super oily. All right, so I am going to heat this oil up. If you have a gas stove, you're in luck because gas stoves are just so much easier to regulate. I don't want to put this on super high. Well, I'm going to put it on high for now, and just to get it heated, but then I'm going to turn it down because I don't want it so hot that the garlic scorches as soon as it hits the pan. That is not what we want. We want the garlic to just release its flavor. So I have my other ingredients over here. And you're definitely going to want to taste this for salt when you're finished, because the salted water, but then you're going to want to put some salt in the final product. So I know there's not much to look at right now because it's just a pan of heating oil. But I wanted to show you this because people are always kind of shocked at the amount of oil. They're like, what? Don't you want to just use a tablespoon? No, you do not want to use a tablespoon. A tablespoon or 2 tablespoons or even 4 tablespoons of oil with this will not be what you want. That will not carry the dish. It will not, you won't taste it. It will be bland and horrible. So you need enough oil, and you need the best quality olive oil you can find. You want something, you don't want something labeled cooking oil or something that's been cut with different kinds of oils. You want something really robust that is going to flavor the dish, because in these dishes, because it's so simple, the ingredients, and there's only a few ingredients, the quality of the ingredients matters tremendously because that's all you have. I think people have been so accustomed to bad ingredients, especially when it comes to olive oil in the United States. Did you know that they did a study, this was a few years ago, they gave people dishes of, you know how at restaurants, well, I don't know if they still do this anymore, maybe the pandemic has changed it, but at some chain Italian restaurants, they would put out a dish of oil with bread. So most of that oil is rancid, okay? It's not good. But people have become so accustomed to that they actually preferred the rancid olive oil to good quality oil. And, you know, I think that is the definition of heartbreak right there. All right, my oil is starting to heat up. I don't know, you probably can't see from there, but they're starting to get little bubbles there. And like I said, this dish comes together super fast. So you want to have everything ready to go. This is a great dish when, you know, maybe you've been out with friends and, you know, you're coming home late at night with your friends and you're all hungry and you want to whip something up really quick. This is a great dish to do that. Okay, I think my oil is getting pretty hot. So let me turn it down just a little bit. All right, are we ready? I'm gonna put the oil in, put the garlic in, yep. So that is ready to go. So I need to be really quick because I don't want this garlic to caramelize. And in goes my parsley. I'm gonna move it off the heat a little bit because I don't want it to super overcook. So you have this really nice, flavorful, garlicky kind of sauce. And I have it off the heat because I want to add some more parsley. And I don't want the garlic to turn brown because that would be not what I want. And
You have that on medium high?
Yeah, I turned it down to medium low because these type of stoves, they're not my favorite, but that's what I have. So I'm grateful for it. I just put the hot pepper flakes in. And I'm just stirring this a little bit and I'm watching it because I don't want any of the garlic to change color. So probably about 5. Yep, I'm good. So I'm taking it off. So there's your sauce. If you had shrimp, you could add it at this point. And if you're using shrimp, you would want to use lemon juice. But with the regular dish, you don't want lemon juice. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in here because I know I'm gonna want it just to kind of blend with the other flavors.
No pepper?
No, because I put the hot pepper in, but no black pepper.
Okay, that's what I meant, black
You can
pepper,
kind of
okay.
see, hopefully you can see everything kind of melded in here. So that's ready to go. And I'm not gonna cook it any further because I don't want the garlic to change color. So now I'm going to make my pasta. I'm gonna turn that back up to high. Now you wanna be careful because whenever you have hot oil, you know that oil and water do not mix. So angel hair pasta cooks really fast. It cooks in like 4 to 5 minutes here. So I'm just gonna make sure that my water is up to boiling point. By the way, this would make a lovely thing for you to dip bread into. Like if you didn't want to make pasta and you just wanted to get a loaf of bread, this would be absolutely delicious. Okay, the stove has kind of lessened its heat because I turned it off. So I'm okay putting that back on because I know it's not going to make it really cook much longer. All right, in goes the pasta. Do not break your pasta. Please don't ever do that. That's another reason why you shouldn't use a small pot for pasta, because people got into the habit of breaking it because the pasta wouldn't fit in the small pot. Do not break your pasta unless you're making soup or something and the pasta shapes are supposed to be broken. But no, no, no. Do not break your pasta ever. Please remember these words. Okay. So my pasta is all in there and it's cooking and it's going to cook pretty quickly, but I'm not going to set a timer. Now you could, if you're not comfortable with cooking pasta and you want to go by the, oh, my pasta's saucy. If you want to go by the box, you do that. But really the best way to test for doneness is to taste. You want to taste your pasta. I don't know if you can hear the lovely sound of the hissing garlic in the oil. It sounds really nice. You want to taste your pasta. And pasta, you know, you've probably heard how it should be al dente. Here's the thing with al dente. Al dente is how your pasta should be, but it doesn't mean what a lot of people seem to think it means. So yes, it literally means to the tooth, but you don't want your pasta to be raw, okay? You do not want the pasta to be raw in the middle. You want it to be fully cooked. You just don't want it to be mushy. Mushy pasta is really a horrible, sad thing. So you just want to make sure it's cooked through. It should have, you know, when people say it should have a little bit of bite, they don't mean that it should be raw and starchy in the middle. They just mean that, you know, it should not be mushy. It should still retain its form, its shape. You should be able to bite into it. You shouldn't, you know, chew it and it dissolves into nothingness. And that is almost done. You can also, if you cook pasta a lot, you'll be able to tell from just the feel of it too, like when it's almost ready. Like this pasta cooks very quickly, but it's still not quite there. And don't forget, it will continue to cook as you take it to the stove in the boiling water. So you don't want to wait until, oh yeah, it's done right now, because by the time you get it to the stove, it'll be overcooked. So let me taste this. The best way is to taste. That needs a little longer. It's still pretty starchy inside, even though the outside is pliable. And you also, you know, you want to make sure that your pasta is circulating. That's another reason why you need so much water, because it needs to move around. If you don't have enough water, it's going to stick to the pot. And you don't want that to happen.
Do you ever throw one of the noodles against the wall to see if it sticks?
I do not. I think that idea became very popular in 1950s America, because that was a thing. Like people actually thought that that was like the authentic way to test it. And I have to say, I have never tried that. You could. I don't know how authentic or how accurate that is. I like tasting it better than trying to peel it off a wall. All right, let's taste it now. Yep, it's ready to go. It's just a little underdone, so I'm gonna move it to the stove. Not to the stove, to the sink. All right, I'm gonna go drain this. I'll be back. So I am draining my pasta. Hopefully you can hear me. I am draining it. I drained it in my colander, but you know, you don't want to drain it so thoroughly that it's bone dry, and you never ever want to rinse it. Okay, we don't rinse pasta. Some people do that, and please don't do that if you are one of them. Okay, so I'm going to start adding my cooked pasta into the sauce. I have the sauce on very low, just so it's you know, it's staying hot, although the pasta will warm it up. And then we're going to move this into a bowl in just a few moments. I'm going to use my tongs in a few moments. I'm going to move this off the heat a little bit because my garlic is starting to color and I don't want that. And that's another reason why you want your pasta to be, you know, you don't want it to be overcooked, because it is going to go into the sauce a little bit. So whether you're making red sauce or this kind of sauce, you know, it cooks a little bit more in the pan. So it's not like it's going to be done and you just dump the sauce over it. Okay. This is kind of tangled. Angel hair gets very tangled very quickly. So I'm just kind of doing this so it absorbs some of the garlic. I'm going to put it into a mixing bowl so I can toss it with tongs. That's a little easier. But I'm just kind of using this forked, what do you call this? I don't even know what this is called. This slotted, it's a slotted spoon, fork, spork kind of thing, just to kind of move everything along. I'm going to make sure all the pasta goes into the pan. So as you can see, the sauce, it's absorbing into the pasta. It's not some swimming in oil concoction. I'm going to go ahead and put it in a mixing bowl so I can better toss it with tongs. I have a really nice pasta bowl, but it's kind of inaccessible, so it's going to have to go into this. You have a rubber spatula. A rubber spatula is good because you can get all the oily and parsley bits out. And you definitely don't want to do anything with this pan. You want to keep it so you can sop up delicious bits of garlic. All right, so I'm going to toss. Gonna get my tongs. I think I'm going to move you back to the counter. So. Tongs are a really good way to make sure, of course, it would go where the apron wasn't. Tongs are a really good way to make sure that the sauce is distributed, whether you're cooking this kind of sauce or you're cooking a tomato sauce. or any kind of sauce. So you can see here that I really want to distribute everything. And I want to taste it because I want to see if my sauce, if my salt is good. So, and the shrimp again would be lovely. I think that's pretty well mixed. And as you can see here at the bottom of the bowl, there's not like a ton of oil there. It's not swimming in oil. The oil has been absorbed. Let me try some and see if I need to adjust my salt. Don't be afraid to use salt with pasta, unless, of course, you know, you have a health issue. So let me try this. I definitely need some more salt. And I'm gonna have a liberal hand with the salt because it's pasta. It's like potatoes. They can take it. It is not traditional to serve cheese with this. So you would not get the saltiness of, you know, pecorino or Parmesan. Pecorino is actually the preferred cheese in my dad's region. And, you know, pecorino is kind of a generic term here, but there's many different kinds of pecorino cheese. It's a sheep cheese. So Locatelli brand in the United States people will call it Locatelli cheese. It's actually pecorino. But there's pecorino sardo, which is Sardinian. There's pecorino abruzzese. There's literally different kinds of pecorino for different parts of Italy. Right? I'm gonna just sprinkle a little more salt and try it again. Get a new fork. I'm not using a spoon to twirl my pasta. Did you notice? You too can twirl pasta the authentic way. That is good. That's it. There's your dish. Spaghetti aglio olio. Pretty quick, easy to prepare, cheap and delicious. So, do you have any questions?
No, I was waiting for you to put some cheese on that, but now I know not to. What would you have?
Again, I can't tell you how to eat your pasta, so I'm
Sure.
not here to tell people what they should and shouldn't do. You know, I am not the pasta police. But I mean, it is not traditional to put cheese on this dish. It is not traditional to put cheese on fish dishes either. But if you love it, if you think it tastes good, then go for it. You know, I mean, really, at the end of the day, cooking is what you like and what you think tastes good. So you might want to try it as is. And, you know, it's like everything. I was talking with my friend about this. People's recollections of food that means something to them is not necessarily this deluxe food, right? I know kids who, well, they're adults now, but they were reminiscing about their mother's cooking, and their mother wasn't a good cook. She would burn food, but they actually liked the taste of the burnt food because that's what mom made, right? So our memories and food are very powerful and intertwined. So this is how my family made it. So that's how I like it. But that doesn't mean that there's other ways that are not perfectly delicious and good to try. So, you know, have fun with it. Adjust the quantities, you know, try different herbs, play around with the garlic. You could certainly add more garlic if you wanted. Add some shrimp. I mean, you could do that. I mean, it's delicious with shrimp. I just didn't want any today. So there's lots of varieties with this. There's lots of possibilities.
What would you serve?
Did I make
what-
a bad pun?
No.
Possibilities.
You did. What would you serve this with? You were a salad, bread?
Yeah, I mean, this could, now in Italy, of course, I mean, they really do have kind of the different courses. So they would probably have this as a very small kind of either a small side dish with a protein main, or, I mean, this could be a dish by itself, certainly. I mean, in my family, we probably would just eat it as a dish by itself. If you have the shrimp, then you already have a protein in there. But I mean, if anything, I would just have a small salad and certainly some good bread to sop up the oil left in the pan and at the bottom of the bowl.
Would you consider this a summer dish, a winter dish, or just a year-round dish?
It is definitely a summer dish, but you can have it any time of the year. I think it's good when you're feeling slightly under the weather. You know, if you have something like a cold or an upper respiratory infection, the garlic will knock it out, and the peperoncino. By the way, there's like, this is not spicy. So you saw the amount of pepper I used. There's just a very small, a small hint of it. So don't be afraid to use more hot pepper than you usually would, because it will be absorbed by the pasta. But yeah, it is predominantly a summer dish, just because it doesn't involve, you know, you don't have to use an oven. It's not like baked pasta, which tends to be a popular winter dish. You're not turning on the oven. You can cook this outside. If you had a pan over an open fire, you could even cook it outside. And it's really quick. You know, you saw how fast the sauce came together. So you're not stirring a pot of tomato sauce for hours and hours. I mean, you're bringing it all together in like 15, 20 minutes.
Nicole, is all of the ingredients for this pretty easy to find? So like if we had any students watching tonight, would this be something they'd be able to find, say at like Lidl or the Harris Teeter that's on the bus route? Would these be things that, you know, would be at your common grocery store?
Harris Teeter would certainly have the flat leaf parsley. Lidl is hit or miss. Sometimes they have the, sometimes, thank you, Dr. Rezik. I saw your comment. That's very kind of you. I love cooking. But Lidl is hit or miss with green groceries, at least my experience. So sometimes I'll find nothing but flat parsley, and sometimes there will be no parsley. So I would say Publix would have it, Fresh Market, Food Lion has it. Okay, Tropicana on Memorial. Thank you, Susan. Tropicana has flat leaf parsley. But again, if you really wanted to try this and you could only find the curly leaf parsley, then go for it. It's not going to make it taste bad. It really won't. Dried garlic, no. And fresh garlic you can find anywhere. I have not found a supermarket ever that didn't have fresh garlic. I think Lidl has fresh garlic. Hot pepper flakes, I think that is something that is also easy to find most places. The quality of it will vary, of course. Some places use really old pepper spices and you never know, but it'll still taste good once it hits the oil, especially. So really, this should be something that is pretty accessible and economical. I mean, the ingredients and this serves, well, in my family, this is barely for 4 people. This is like 2 people, but you know, they say what, a pound of pasta. What's the serving size? Ha ha ha, 8 servings. Yeah, right. No, not to most Italian families. Certainly not for Abruzzese families. But if you wanted to go by the box, then yeah, 8 servings, and probably for, I would say, less than $5 for the whole thing. So it's very economical and it heats up well. Italians traditionally frown upon leftovers, but sorry, I guess that's the American in me. I love leftover pasta, can be very good. Especially you could heat it up with some eggs and make an omelet with it. That's a wonderful way to use this kind of leftover pasta, and add some cheese and cook it, and you have a spaghetti omelet, and that's delicious too. And I think do we have any students listening tonight? Anyone in dorms? If you know anyone in a dorm, I think, I believe most of the dorms here at ECU do have a communal kitchen area with a stove. So this would be something that a group of students could easily make if they wanted to. And it's, you know, very cheap, very, very easy, very, I think, friendly for a novice cook as well. Because really there's nothing to really tend to. You just have to watch the oil while you're cooking. Great questions. Other questions? I want to have another bite of the pasta if you don't mind. I'm gonna try it. Should I do that thing that they always do on food shows where they like nod their head and give a thumbs up and say how wonderful it is? But really,
You got to describe what it tastes like.
I am not one of those people who like ascribes bizarre adjectives to food. No, but it's good. Let's try it again.
You roll the pasta up on your fork properly.
Yep. It's delicious. It's really delicious. And just taste and check. And like I said, don't be afraid of salt because this dish definitely can stand some salt. And that's it.
That looks awesome. Now we're all going to come over and have dinner with you.
You know what you call it when a whole bunch of friends get together to eat pasta? They call it a spaghettata. So we have to have a spaghettata, definitely. Because in
Good
Italy,
deal.
a lot of people, you know, if they're out late with friends, I mean, pasta's always in the cupboard, and it's a nice economical way to feed a bunch of hungry people. Until fairly recently, restaurants weren't open 24 hours in Italy. So if you were out, you know, nightclubs there are pretty common. I mean, it's a social thing. So even younger people, like teens, will go to nightclubs. So you come back home after dancing. Maybe this is more of the 90s, my recollection, but you come back home after dancing and everyone's hungry and there's no place to go. So you whip up this, or, you know, make something quick and easy to eat. You and your friends eat, and then you go to sleep and everyone's happy. Other questions?
I thought that was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Grazie.
Mhm.
So those of you who are listening, please, tomorrow at 3 p.m. at International House, we will have a traditional Moroccan tea. That is the other cultural part of my life. I am married to a Moroccan and I lived in Morocco, and Moroccan food is a passion of mine. And every year, last year we couldn't because of the pandemic, but this year we will be hosting it again. We have our annual Moroccan tea, and there's lots of homemade deliciousness. I really put a lot of care into it, and you'll get to have some delicious, authentic Moroccan mint tea. So if you're free at 3 p.m. tomorrow, please stop by International House for some tea and some cookies. Yes, delicious Moroccan tea.
I'll be
Good
there.
for what ails you. And actually, I believe we're also going to have, it's not Moroccan, but one of the program's instructors, Munira Al-Madhiab, she will be preparing stuffed grape leaves, and her stuffed grape leaves are a legend. So it'll be a lot of fun. Come see us. Other questions? If you have any questions later, feel free to email me. I'm in the ECU system, Ianieri n18@ecu.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions, to troubleshoot anything, and please feel free to reach out if you try this dish.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all. Grazie a tutti.
Mm.
Thank you to everybody. Ci vediamo domani. We'll see you tomorrow, I hope. So thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks, Nicole.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.